everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Shut Up and Do It podcast, the place where we bring you all things real estate and business related and life with people who believe in a get it done manner. My name is Nick Allerud, principal of the AA Real Estate Group out of Greater Boston. We own multifamily and commercial development, and we have a single family fix and flip team and a property management team all throughout New England. We have a very special guest on today. A lot of you might already know this man. He has a podcast called Real Estate Disruptors with over 10,000 followers already on it. He is a creator of a real estate sales training program where he trains some of the top wholesalers in the country. And he's also the creator of OfferFast Homes app, which is a place where you can help wholesalers build their buyers list and kind of work their business in a much different way. His legacy is to create 100 millionaires. I'm going to let him tell the rest of his story. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Trang. Thanks for being on, man.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
It's an honor for us too, my man. Everyone might already know your story, but for those that don't, please dive into your story, my man.
Oh, yeah, sure. So how far back do you want me to go?
Yeah. About 10 minutes. No.
10 minutes? Okay.
Before real estate even, what made you have the entrepreneurial spirit? Like where did that come from?
You know, the entrepreneurial spirit, I think that's just something that we're all kind of wired in a certain way. In some ways, you know, I always knew that working for somebody just wasn't for me. And so it's actually kind of fascinating. I've taken so many different personality profiles. And for the most part, I think the consistent theme in all of them was like, this guy does not fit in any box. And so I think just, I knew I wasn't going to be able to have a boss. And I think, you know, we were talking offline just a moment ago, you know, individualist. And one of the key characteristics is that I'm just really bad at doing something in a way that's different than how I believe it should be done. You know, so having a boss is just not in my DNA. And I did work at Intel for 3.5 years. And in both places, my bosses were awesome. And they kind of let me do what I wanted to do. But I just knew that I could not, in the long term, have a boss. So even before I started working at Intel, I already knew I was going to start a company or be an independent contractor. I just didn't know what it was until I got into real estate.
Gotcha. That's awesome. And it was Intel that happened. We are what they call unemployable, right, Steve? The unemployable.
Unemployable, yeah. And I was a great employee. As a matter of fact, when I quit, they're like, well, you know, it's sad to see you go because we saw like really big potential in you. I was like, what do you mean? They're like, you know, we saw you could be a VP at Intel one day. And I said, wow, that's awesome. And they're like, what would it take for you to stay? I was like, probably like 200,000. They're like, well, wish you the best out there.
Oh gosh, that's awesome. So as an Intel employee, you then turned to, was it already hardwired?
So I jumped into real estate because, you know, like everyone else in our industry, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And, you know, you realize there's the rat race or there's getting out of the rat race. And, you know, I opted to get out of the rat race. And so I was trying to buy rental properties with my friends. And thank God the banks declined our loans in 2007 because otherwise we have more foreclosures on our records. But, you know, I met a broker while we were trying to buy rental properties, and it just seemed like he was living an interesting life. At this time, you know, I was making 70, and I met him, and he was talking about how he was making 100,000 a year. And I was asking him, well, what would it take for me to do that? And he said, well, just, you know, go get your real estate license. I'll teach you everything I know. And I said, what do you do exactly? He says, I just talk to people all day. I said, okay, I can do that. And so I got my real estate license in 2.5 weeks. Submitted my 2 weeks notice at Intel, and I went all in May of 2007, which in hindsight was not the best idea, but you talk about shut up and do it. I am the ultimate in just going all in.
That's it. Burn the boats, right, my man?
Yeah, nice. Exactly. One of my hobbies, I don't play so much anymore now that I'm a happily married man, but I played a lot of poker, a lot of no limit poker. And I was always the first. Like if I think I have the edge, I'm pushing all my chips in. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Whatever happens, but I'm pushing all my chips in. You
were that guy, blinds collector. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Could be.
Very, very cool. All right, so you jumped in 2007 and you started with a friend trying to buy rentals. Is that what the first strategy was?
Yep. Me and 3 of my really good friends from middle school, you know, from middle school through high school, through college. And after college, you know, we were really tight. And so me and the 3 of them, and, you know, one of us got a foreclosure, unfortunately, but the rest of us left unscathed.
Do you still talk to that poor guy who got the foreclosure or no?
Yeah. On a fairly regular basis. Not as much as I would like, but definitely. Like we're all in good terms for sure.
Gotcha. Very cool. So that was 2007. Has it all been in the Phoenix area?
Yeah, it's all been in the Phoenix area. So I got my license. I did the realtor thing I'm still licensed, obviously, but I did the realtor thing purely until about 2011, 2012. And then once I got a taste of flipping, it was hard to be just purely a realtor.
Yes, yes. But it was actually really good that you're one of the only ones in the investment arena I found that started out as a retail agent and moved into the investment space. A lot of times it's the opposite. And then the investors are like, I don't want to serve other people. And then they like kill that idea, right? They go away. What skills did you pick up as a retail agent that you kind of carried forward into the investment space?
There are a lot of things on the retail side that translate really well. So, learning how to hire an assistant and train. When I was listing foreclosure properties, that's when I started hiring assistants. Like, all right, you need to, go turn on the utilities. You go fight with the HOA about getting what the balance is. Because, HOAs are notorious for being fascist organizations. So just, having someone handle all the things that are awful, I learned to do that, when I started listing foreclosure properties. And then having an agent, someone calls your sign and say, okay, I'm not going to show buyers anymore. You go show that property. Well, that eventually becomes your acquisition agent, right? Mm-hmm. You get your dispositions department. That's basically a listing agent. So and you get your transaction manager, you get your escrows, like everything translates really well. So I would say the one that translated the best probably though is leadership. In order to have good people, you need to be a good leader. And that translates really well into the investment side as well.
Yes. 1,000%. The whole game changes, right? When our job stops being trying to get that offer signed at the closing table versus how do I motivate my team today? Right?
Oh, exactly.
I've gone through that same challenge. I still go through that challenge. So
it's a never ending. People is the last frontier in business.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right. So you did around 4 years in retail and you built your team out. Mm-hmm. And did you amass any rentals or you didn't? You got denied?
No, we got those. We have 2 rentals right now. We have a different philosophy on acquiring rental properties. It goes completely against every book.
Now you have to share it. It's a
yeah. So it goes against every, logical thing as far as like buying rental properties. But, being a licensed realtor and going through the recession, 2008, 2009, 2010, I got the opportunity to witness what real wealth looks like. And so you see these guys coming in with their proof of funds of $18 million and they're just buying swaths of properties cash. And I saw, okay, who escaped unscathed? It was the guys that are buying properties cash. Because you own properties cash, doesn't matter what happens, you're going to be fine. So we got 2 properties cash. Our primary residence, we bought it back in November. We're trying to have it paid off in the next couple of months. And then after that, we're going to start buying properties again. But it's going to be a low personal expense lifestyle.
Brilliant. And you would always win. I'm curious though, so in your business, you don't even try to time the market at all. You won't buy low, sell high and all that stuff. Nothing at all.
No, timing the market's for suckers. I think timing the market is great if you're only planning on being in business for a few years. But I'm 40. I've got probably 30 good years of investing left. Like maybe I don't want to be in business for more than 10 years. But I think guys like us, we can't retire. We're always gonna be doing something. It's just gonna be something bigger. And so for me, I don't see retirement happening. And so I plan on, being healthy for quite some time, playing not with just my kids who are really young, but my grandkids, and hopefully be healthy long enough to be with my great grandkids. And so for me, timing the market is it's a waste of time, in my humble opinion.
No, that's good. I agree. I want to poke you a little bit though with the use of leverage. So you don't really use leverage even on your fix and flip business or in your rental?
On the fix and flip, we do. On fix and flip, we're 100% with private money.
Okay.
They fund. So the way I've negotiated with our private money is they fund the closing costs, the rehab. And our negotiated structure is no points, no down payment, and no payments. And they fund everything. And it's just 10%. 10% from when the first leg closes, and the second leg closes prorated, but no payments, nothing out of pocket the whole time. Brilliant.
How long did it take you to get there? The private
not very long because of my track record, not flipping track record. Just I've been in the industry since, again, 2007. I'm pretty well known in our community. And, as far as I know, no one has anything bad to say about me.
That's a huge point though. And I want to drive that home. So even though you didn't have the investment experience, the fact that you were well connected and you were a public face in your community, that was how you started to raise your good private money at really good terms. Accurate?
Yeah. So at first it was with family. So we did flip with family money first and we eventually ran out and that's when we started wholesaling, but then we started buying again. But when we're talking about the track record I want to say 2017 was our best year. where I was number 38 out of 45,000 realtors, in the Phoenix market as far as transactions goes. Like we're doing 100 transactions a year on the traditional side, not to mention, what we're doing on the side on the flipping.
Yeah, that's brilliant. The first private lender that I ever met was also just because I was out there at local RIAs and meetups, like, right? Now they're called meetups, before they were called RIAs back in the day, right?
Yeah.
But I remember just being present, and it's the guy that I had no idea had money. It was the guy that I had no idea was even looking at me or watching me, right? And so I just want to drive that point home, like just having the face in the community, showing people what you're doing and that you're a guy of integrity and a guy doing what you say you're going to do. Like there you go. Right.
It goes a long way. And that's something that I train my young agents is, always act on your best behavior, because the world's really small. So you never know who's watching, but the world is not just small, but it's super small in our niche. And as a matter of fact, twice this year, I've had some of the seasoned guys. We're talking guys that have been doing real estate longer than I've been alive. Two of them say to me, like, I've been watching you the last few years to see if you're someone that we want to help grow further. It's like I'm learning things on the creative side that I didn't even know was possible. But they mentioned to me, like, the only reason why we're reaching out to you is because we've had our eye on you. Well, that's pretty cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. All right. So in 2011, you got into the investment space. Was that fix and flip at that point?
Yeah. So we were basically wholesaling before wholesaling was a common term. And I was just doing this as a realtor trying to get listings. So I'm trying to, how do I find motivated sellers? How do I find sellers? And so I was learning Google pay-per-click. So I was targeting, like, what's my home worth, free appraisal, stuff like that. And those leads went absolutely nowhere. But the leads that were popping was sell my house. So, okay, let me just go deep on sell my house. And I'm seeing on sell my house, we got all these cash investors. Like, okay, so I got to compete against, these cash investors. But at that time, there was only one prominent name in the Phoenix market when you Google sell my house, and it was Sean Terry. And basically what I did was I got Keyword Spy. I downloaded, for Keyword Spy, you can actually, see what your competition is doing. So I was able to download all the words he was searching, all his ads, and I just went to his website, just copied his website. And, and this was, at this time, I wish I could still do this. At that time, I was $2.12 a click and $12.50 per lead. Oh, if I can get those, I squandered. If I had known then what I know now, man, I'd be so much further ahead. But I was just trying to get listings at that point.
That's brilliant. So for those of you who are watching this and don't know, Sean Terry is one of the national renowned marketers in our space. Yeah. And he's also part of one of our masterminds that Steve and I both belong to. And you literally can just go in there and just copy and steal, a case method, right? Copy and steal everything. from
it's not proprietary.
Yes, no. Good for you, my man. And clearly, yeah, he knew what was going on in that space. So, and you started, was all your marketing just PPC and SEO at that point?
At that point, I was doing SEO. I'm sorry, I was doing SEO, but that was a bomb. So pay-per-click and direct mail was doing marketing at that time.
Okay, gotcha. And that was the primary source of your motivated seller leads?
Yes, for seller leads. I wouldn't say motivated seller, just for seller leads. But, you learn that motivated seller leads because now you go like sell my house fast, sell my house cash, buy my house now. So you realize the keywords that motivated sellers are typing versus interested sellers. So yeah, we went after motivated sellers, but that was not the intent. The intent was just to find interested sellers.
That's so interesting too, because now, again, I came at it from the other side, right? I was an investor first and a retail agent. I was never really a retail agent, but I became an agent later. And when we're trying to train agents to try to have an investor mindset, it's kind of like you're already doing the marketing. We're just way more targeted and we have a slightly different skill set, right? And we have to have access to, capital and all that. But it's like, it's just very targeted. But what was your
It's the same business, just a different audience.
Different audience, exactly. And PPC and cost per leads probably go up. I don't know though. I'll ask you.
Oh yeah. Now we're at $40-some a click, and I think like $480 a lead, not per appointment, a lead right now in Phoenix.
Wow. Phoenix. There it is. One of the most competitive real estate investor markets in the country, to my knowledge. So along with Miami, Vegas, and California, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think Houston is up there too.
In Houston. Nice, Steve. Oh gosh. Well, he's playing with the crocodiles now. So, okay. That was 2011. He got in fix and flip and he just copied. I love how you just put it out there in public too. It's like, thanks, Sean. Just copied all your stuff. Worked for me.
Yeah, it worked. It worked great. The only ones I got in trouble with was home investors. We got trademark complaints about that. Actually, there was someone else too. There was another organization that complained, but that had nothing to do with copying their stuff. It was just really more of me writing an article about them. Like, we don't like the fact that you wrote an article about us on your blog. It's like, okay. So
a lot of people, how does it feel to want? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just made a couple of tweaks to the blog. I was like, okay, well, now whatever your complaint was in the cease and desist, it's no longer valid.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Brilliant. All right. So that was in 2011. So 2011 until, here's a good question. What was your biggest first, like, one or two challenges that you had to face in your fix and flip when you started to turn into the investment mindset?
Well, I mean, I would say that my mindset changed because I remember the first house that we bought, because like I was doing this to get listings and I was getting listings, right? I was like, you don't want to go with a cash investor, like, list with me, you'll get more, blah, blah, blah. But I was part of the Craig Proctor, your home sold guarantee or we'll buy it program. And so I walk into someone's house and I remember like their house was worth $100,000 at this time. And I was saying, we can list it in 30 to 90 days. You're going to have 91,000 after everything's said and done. They're like, well, we want the cash offer. I was like, well, no, that's not how this works. Like, the cash offer comes after 90 days. And they said, no, we want the cash offer today. And I said, well, for the cash offer today, it's going to have to be 80,000. And they said, we'll take it. And I said, no, you don't understand. Like, if you list it, you'll get 91,000. And so she's like, I don't care. We want the 80 today. And I said, okay. So I had to go back to my car and get a contract, a blank purchase contract to fill it out. And so at that time I'm driving home and I call my wife. I say, hey, we just bought a house. She's like, what do you mean we just bought a house? Like, well, we just contracted a house. And then after my conversation with my wife, I called my dad. I said, hey, Dad, do you have $80,000?
There it is.
Yeah. And he did. He worked hard, sacrificed his whole life. So he did have 80,000. But it was just really the mindset shift, because I did that and I got some more listings. And then got the next person. It's like, yes, we'll take a cash offer. I was like, what? So we lowered our offer to, after the second yes, we lowered our offers to 75% for a cash offer today. And we were still buying too many houses where we actually did run out of money. Mm-hmm. And once we ran out of money, then we started wholesaling. I would say one of the biggest challenge was that I'm borderline. There's a line between confident and arrogant. And I'm definitely always riding that line. And so in that mindset, I'm going to figure it out. So I'm making cash offers on houses, right? Even if I don't have the cash yet, I'm just gonna make a cash offer because I know my back's against the wall, I'll find the money. So I would make offers, but part of me as well is that when I make a commitment to somebody, I'm gonna honor it no matter what. And so I bought some bad houses. So, like this lady, like I bought her house and, she was telling me she was talking about all about her pain. And I never once checked, because this is Arizona. I never once checked to see if it actually had an AC unit. Because what house doesn't have an AC unit? So we closed on it and I put it active on MLS, literally did nothing, right? Wholesaling, literally did nothing. And the first agent goes and is like, hey, why isn't there an AC unit? And I was like, what do you mean why isn't there an AC unit? So, and we still made, like 3,000 or 4,000 on that one, but an AC unit is really important to property values in Arizona. So,
I can imagine.
So I think just making commitments without doing due diligence, but I think this just goes back to my personality, right? If I'm going to do something, I'm just going to do it. And yeah. I will make mistakes, but taking action will far outweigh the mistakes along the way.
I love that, Steve. We went through a similar challenge where when I was learning to scale, which was really only the last 3 or 4 years, learning actually how to really scale the business from a 2 or 3 person operation. I remember we had to look at it more as a customer service business. And we couldn't say no anymore. There was always a price, right? There's always a price for every house. But at the same time, it's kind of like, this one's got a lot of hair on it. I don't know if this one's going to sell, but we had to make those commitments. If we say we're going to buy it, we're going to buy it. Even if after the fact, there's an issue. Okay, what do we do here? We have to, figure out on the rehab side, or I don't want to retrade. I don't want to renegotiate. We made a commitment.
That's the worst.
Yeah, we made a commitment. So just like you, with scaling especially, we've had a lot of hair on a lot of deals.
Yeah. So I did have one deal where we canceled, right? And this is part of scaling because I was sending my agents now to the house. And then, my wife's like, hey, let's go look at this house. I was like, okay, fine. We'll go look at the house. And I pull up, it's like, oh my God, there's a power line right in front of the house. Why did my agent not make any mention about the power line right in front of the house? And so I actually called the seller and I said, hey, you know what? I know we made a commitment to you to buy this house, but we can't. My agent completely botched this value. So here's the thing. I know I'm within my rights to cancel and get my earnest money back, but I want you to keep the earnest money. You made some decisions, inconvenience you, you've moved forward on the understanding I'm buying your house. So even though I'm within my rights, I'm going to cancel. I'm going to let you keep my $1,000 earnest money. And she said, her response was, well, for me to do what I was going to do, I actually had to make a deposit of $1,500. Yep. I was like, oh, okay. So I wrote her another check for $500 just so I can sleep well. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, I've only canceled 2 ever. That was one. And I just paid her whatever, money she lost. And the second one, I told the guys, like, look, this house is really bad. Here's my offer, but I have to do an inspection to make sure that, there's some massive deferred maintenance everywhere. So I'm going to have to do an inspection. And he's like, okay, fine. And when I did the inspection, it needed new plumbing, electrical, AC, and a roof. And I said, look, I want to buy your house, but I can't move forward. So on that one, I said up front, like, I am not committed to this price. But so those are only 2 I've ever canceled on.
Gotcha. That's pretty, well, you said an inspection now too. So this is probably a good transition into what you do now, which is your sales training. Do you buy, was that over the phone or is that your team just going out there and representing you with photos?
So on that one with the power line, that was my team. The one with the inspection, with the everything falling apart, that was me personally. That was before I scaled the wholesaling side. I only scaled the investment side just like a little over 2 years ago. And so, but yeah, we like to do everything in person. Especially in Phoenix.
That's cool. That's cool. It's funny you mentioned power lines because just really local, micro local in my area. I had 1 year, I think it was 17, your best year. In 17, we bought 3 properties, one after another, and 2 of them had power lines in the backyard, like massive Canadian power line. It's like, so we say we specialize in power lines right now. That went on a couple postcards for a while as we sent them out to, directly targeted electrical lines. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
In your investment business, so you just scaled 2 years ago. You now run a sales training for real estate investors.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Tell us how you transition into that. And of course, I'm going to start to get some golden nuggets out of you too, that we can share.
Yeah, for sure. So my biggest weakness, so I had, a lot of strengths working in my favor. But my biggest weakness, honestly, is that I was a terrible salesperson. So I was successful because of how comfortable I was with spending and marketing. Right? Like I'll spend whatever we need to spend to get deals. Profitability was not as the priority then what it is today. Okay. So now we're really, really strict on our profit margins. Last year was we had, I think 46% profitability on our wholesaling business. Right. So it was really important last year or now, but it really wasn't a few years ago. So I would just spend my way into revenue, which didn't necessarily lead to profit. Right. Or not as much profit as you would like for how much risk we were taking. And so the reason the profitability was low was that I could market, I could find people to raise their hands, but I was a terrible closer, And a lot of this came because my background, I'm naturally an engineer. And one of the things that happens is that we sell the way we want to be sold. And so the way I want to be sold is give me the facts and I'll figure it out. No one wants to be sold that way. Everyone wants to be sold emotionally. And so I would go into someone's house, like your house is worth this. For us to buy your house, we need to be at this because of, closing costs and the roof and this and that, which is a very adversarial conversation, but I didn't set the ground rules. And so what happened more often than not is, well, I need to think about it. And that's the worst. Like the worst thing that can happen in an appointment is I need to think about it. And so a couple of years ago, in the middle of 18, I had a buddy who I was trying to buy some more deals. I was talking to a buddy who was a home investor guy. And he's like, well, why don't you just come hang out with us on Fridays? I was like, what do you mean hang out with you guys on Friday? So yeah, every Friday we're in this, we're all hanging out at this place up in Scottsdale. I said, where is this at? And they said, well, so he finally told me, it took a while to pull out of him, but it was Sandler, Sandler selling system. And so I went there and I didn't care what it cost to be in that room. Honestly, if it was $20,000 to be in that room, if I had to pay the sales trainer $20,000 to be in that room, I would pay him $20,000 to be in that room because I know I'm going to make money if I hang out around with the home investor guys, right? But when I showed up, I came to learn that this is a sales training company. And I said, okay, well, if I can get some sales training out of this also, that's a bonus. I just want to be in the room with the guys. But once I got in the room, I saw the sales trainer there was incredible. And he opened up my eyes to what I was doing wrong the first 11 years of my business. And so once I got into that, I was going there not just on Fridays when they were hanging out. I was going on Tuesdays and Wednesdays as well. So I was going in obsessed, taking what I always considered to be my greatest weakness to at least get it to be competent. But now, I think I've gone so invested in it and I totally geeked out on it. I would say it's one of my biggest strengths today.
That's awesome. So it was the same people who, tried to sue you for the trademark infringement. Your defamation on your blog. Same guy.
So the same guys that were unhappy with my marketing methods are the same guys I was hanging out with to learn sales training.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love how you put it too, where you, as an engineer's background, you're right, you used to being sold the way you wanted to be sold. So now, how hard was it to transition into that emotional close?
Well, it's hard for me only, not because of the engineering side, but because of the way I was raised. My parents, well, I'm an immigrant as well, but we came here, and growing up, I'm the oldest of 6 boys. And if you were to cry, dad was going to give you additional reasons to cry. So being attached to our emotions is not something we do. As immigrants in the Asian culture, I think we're very stoic overall as a culture. And so feeling your emotions is not something that's common or celebrated in any way. Okay. And so part of the selling process for us is getting deep into someone's emotions, getting them to feel their pain, right? It's not just, I know I'm in foreclosure, but now we know how you feel about that foreclosure. We know how, we're talking about who's it affecting, who else is it impacting? Are you fighting with your wife about it? Who else knows about this foreclosure? We're asking all these questions to get emotional about it. And for me, anytime a grown man starts crying, it's just uncomfortable for me. I don't cry at funerals. I've cried at 2 funerals, and these were the funerals of my friends, right? Like all the other people that I've gone to, it's a dry eye. There's something wrong with me emotionally. Okay. And so when I'm in someone's house and the grown man starts crying, I know I'm doing the process correctly, but it's so grossly uncomfortable.
Yes. But that's exactly it. The feeling it, right? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And you having to provoke that emotion, not necessarily being an emotional person. That is a learned skill, right? You learn that skill for sure.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Okay. All right. So I have to ask you some golden nuggets. Top 2 or 3 tips you can give to our listeners on what they should be doing in a seller appointment. Or is it do you do over the phone, or is it all an appointment face to face?
So we do in person, but obviously we had to do it over the phone during COVID, but we train our students, do you virtual or in person, it doesn't really matter. The process is still the same. You're losing some of the communication from the lack of body language, but for all intents and purposes, the tonality, the pacing, that's all still the same. So like some of the big nuggets, I would say for anyone that's not right now establishing the rules of the meeting, like that's the first thing you got to do. I would say that's probably the most important component, is really setting the rules of the meeting before we can start. And so what it sounds like at a high level, hey, Nick, before we start, you're going to have some questions for me. You want to know, what this process looks like, how much money you're going to get, how soon you're going to get it. And for me, I'm going to need to ask you some questions. Some are going to be really personal. Is that okay? And we're asking because we're going to ask you how much your mortgage balance is, what your interest rate is, what your payments are, why you're behind. And these are personal questions. Okay. So we get permission to ask personal questions and say, hey, Nick, at the end of our time together, 1 of 2 things is going to happen. Either I'm going to buy your house or I'm not going to buy your house. And for me, either way is going to be totally okay. So if the price we offer just doesn't make sense for you, or if any way you just don't think I'm a good fit for you, can you just go ahead and tell me it's going to be a no? Likewise, if I don't think this is a house I'm going to buy, are you going to be okay if I tell you I'm not going to buy your house? And that's like what? What do you mean you don't want to buy my house? Right? Like I thought, because they look at us as commodities. So this is a way where we just say we're not a commodity. Okay. And then they say, yeah, I guess. And then we'll say, and if it does make sense for us to work together, what that means, we're going to go ahead and put everything we talked about in writing. Is that fair? And I say, yeah, of course. Because who doesn't want to put this in writing, right? And Nick, can I just share with you my biggest fear? Some of the people I talk to, some of the homeowners, they're just really concerned about protecting my feelings. They're afraid, they don't want to hurt my feelings. Can you just promise me that at the end of our time together, you're not going to tell me you need to think about it or think it over? And if you say anything besides a yes, I'm just going to take that as a no. Are you okay with that? And now what do we have? We don't have at the very end, I need to think about it. I need to think it over. It's either a yes or anything else is a no.
Brilliant. That's awesome stuff, Steve. Yeah. So that's setting the frame and the rules of engagement of the seller appointment.
Exactly.
Any of the pre-framing or objection dealings over the phone before the appointment, or is it all in face-to-face?
We like to do as much as possible face-to-face.
Yeah.
So the only thing that we'll have is, we qualify purely on pain. Like there has to be pain and motivation. If there's no pain and motivation, we're not even going to go. Okay. But if they got pain and motivation, so then the only other thing would be the price. They're saying if Zillow says it's $250, we're just using Zillow as a frame point here. Well, Zillow's $250 and they're like, we need $315. Okay. The person will still set the appointment, but the person that would go to the appointment has every right to call them hey, I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. Right. Because there's no point in going to that appointment, but we know people lie all the time. So if it's close, then we'll still go. If they say they want retail, we'll still go, because I know that someone that says retail may still take a low offer. And I know the guy that's reasonable will still want 30,000 over Zillow. So it's just, people lie all the time. So the thing that we really qualify the most on is really pain and motivation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And then you were saying the other nugget, the one thing that I would say really sets us apart is active listening. And everyone talks about active listening. Okay. But what does active listening really mean? And so one thing that I've said in our training is to understand what Johnny buys, see the world through Johnny's eyes. Okay. Like people think bonding a rapport is like, hey, how about them Patriots? Or do you watch the Red Sox game? That's not bonding a rapport. That's personal, like small talk stuff. To really,
using our, greatest teams ever in the world. So I appreciate that. Continue.
Arguably. So, and so what you want to do is really understand the world in their eyes, right? See the world through their eyes, walk in their moccasins. These are old cliches, but they're still true. And so how do we do this? Well, we ask better questions. And on top of asking questions, we really want to uncover as much as possible. Someone says like a common question a lot of people get is, how long have you been in business? And the typical answer is like, well, 5 years or 15 years or whatever. And that's the answer. But that's not what they really want to know. That's their question because they don't know how to ask good questions. And that's all of us, right? We don't know how to ask good questions. So someone asks like, how long have you been in business? Well, I got started in 2007. But I'm curious, Nick, you must be asking me that question for a reason. And they say, well, we just want to make sure that, you have a track record. It's like, okay. So when you say track record, what are you looking to find? And I say, if I can get this, okay, so if I can show you that, you would feel comfortable that, we're competent, we can help you with the sale of your home. Mm-hmm. But people take the how long you've been in business and they just answer and they just move on, like a list of questions. And really, reality, there's a lot more underneath that question that people just kind of skip on.
That's fantastic advice. Answering questions with questions, but in a very skillful way.
Exactly.
Very good, Steve. So right now you're majorly focused on your sales training for real estate investors, yes. Right? Mm-hmm. And besides your, nationally and internationally acclaimed amazing podcast, the Real Estate Disruptors, is there any other projects that you're super excited about that, right now? What are you passionate about? What gets you up in the morning?
Man, right now what gets me up is I want to be like Steve Jobs. I want to make a dent in the universe. And so something that I'm trying to do right now is, we were kind of talking about this earlier, is there are multiple sales people out there, sales instructors. There's no shortage of sales instructors out there, but I can't think of any that's like well-liked, right? Like that's renowned. And you got like, for motivation, you got Tony Robbins, and everyone loves Tony Robbins.
Not everybody.
Not everybody, but a lot of people like him.
Yeah.
And so when you think of sales trainers, you think of Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street. You think of Grant Cardone, who is very love-hate, right? Either you're in his cult or you're not in his cult. And so I'm trying to create my own little niche in the sales world of teaching people how to sell. And it's really important to be a good salesperson because it affects everything around you. As a matter of fact, I teach my kids, they're 9, 7, and 3. So I teach the 9 and 7-year-old how to be better listeners and ask better questions so they can be better salespeople. It's come back to bite me a few times. I said to my wife the other day, it's like, I feel like every time in this house I'm getting sold. I feel like I'm getting sold something, but I created those little monsters.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's brilliant. Speaking of the little monsters, Steve, how do you balance all of it? Kids, marriage, businesses, coaching, podcasts. How do you balance?
Yeah, it's tough, but I would say I've spent a lot of time and a lot of money in personal development. By my estimation, I'll have to go back in QuickBooks, but by my estimation, around $300,000 in personal development. And so what this has done is really helped me to be the best business person I can be. And to be a great business person, it doesn't mean you're only savvy in business. Because to be a great business person, it all starts at home. You need to have everyone on the same team, everyone supportive of it. And so in order to do that is you do need to be as active in your home life as you are in your business. So could I be a better husband? Absolutely. The thing I spend the most probably effort on is trying to be as good a dad as possible. And I'm not perfect. We have, I think I was counting, we have 4 weekends in a row where the oldest had a meltdown, and we had a talk like, hey, we're not going to have a meltdown this weekend. She still did. But, I take pre-COVID, I was taking the oldest kids to Kung Fu lessons twice a week, piano lessons twice a week, and swim lessons once a week. And so I'm the one that's taking them. And I thought that was enough. But Amelia, my oldest, had a conversation with me. Like, that's not quality time. Like, you're there with us, but that's not quality time. So like, I want to do more things. So now we're having game nights. So we're playing games in the middle of the week now to spend more quality time. But I think just being intentional with the home life. And they say that work-life balance doesn't exist. I would argue that it does if you're intentional with it.
Mm-hmm. Intentional. Great words, Steve. Just sharing something that I've just even recently learned. For those, some of my listeners know that I've been through it on the relationship side. And one of the things, just like with business, I used to think that in business, I could take on everything and like, it's, everything's all in front of me and let me just nail it down. Time blocking will help, right? Time blocking will help everything. And then as I learned over time, business is like every single day is like just, if you do short, small, strategic strikes that are the important dominoes, right, to knock those things down. But I never translated that into my personal life. And what I'm seeing is, because then I was still, I'm working on business, but I've got I'm driving my kids here. That's got to be time, right? I'm not I learned just even the last couple of weeks, like small strategic strikes with the kids. Like if I do it right, if I've got 6 minutes in between this appointment and hell, I'm here, I'm going to go for 4 minutes and jump on the trampoline with them. And they're going to remember that all day.
Yeah. It's absolutely true.
Yeah, it's a big learning curve. This episode's awesome because we covered a whole bunch of things. You even talked about morality of the wholesaler too, making sure you follow through on commitments. I was reprimanding a bunch of wholesalers because there's a lot of trainers out there that train them, don't worry about, you'll find a buyer, make all these commitments and you're going to get the buyer. No, like you're going to lose your reputation like that. Right. Yeah.
Your reputation is so important. Like that was something that my dad taught me when I was growing up, was your name is your most valuable thing because you only have one. And that's so true in 2020, way more true in 2020 than it was in 1985.
That is very, very true. Oh, awesome. What's the best way people can reach out to you and look you up besides your, internationally renowned podcast?
The best way really is on Instagram. It's kind of crazy, to hear a 40-year-old say that, but at steve.trang, that's where I'm most responsive. And I try to be as responsive as I can be. I'm not perfect, but everyone does get responded to eventually, not immediately. But eventually everyone gets responded to. That's the best way. Besides that, we got Facebook. We got the Real Estate Disruptors Facebook group. You can always find me in there.
Yeah, that's a great group too. It's funny. So I'm learning from you again. I am just about 40 and I have been being dragged kicking and screaming by my marketing department over to Instagram because I'm just an old fart and I'm still on Facebook. It is what it is. So.
Oh, well, I'm getting dragged into TikTok. So keep an eye out for that.
Oh, TikTok. I love it. Very, very good. Awesome. Any last bit of phrase of advice, whether you heard from somebody else or you just coming from you, Steve, that you want to give to the fledgling or intermediate real estate investors out there looking to get into scaling their business?
Yeah, I would say the big thing is, and I say this all the time, is like, why not you? And I know that we're going through a tumultuous time right now, and it's always terrible right before the election. And maybe this is more true back in February than it is in August this year. But I will always argue that we live in the greatest country on the planet in the best time ever. And there's just no reason for you to not be successful. There are just no excuses. It might be harder. You might have a steeper hill to climb, but it's worth it. So you just got to go after it. If you want it, there's no reason why you can't achieve it.
I love it. Great stuff here. Steve, thank you so much for being on today, man. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun.
It was awesome. All right. Well, folks, thank you so much for taking part in another episode of the Shut Up and Do It podcast, the place where we bring as much value as we can by sharing top quality speakers, all who believe in a get it done manner. Huge thank you to Steve Trang today, Real Estate Disruptors, real estate sales trainer, and he might be coming out with a book, but are we allowed to say that yet or not yet?
Yeah. It's going to be out. I'll look for it in 2 months. So end of October.
End of October. Fantastic. Yeah. This is probably going to be airing in mid-September-ish. So you'll have about 4 to 5 weeks from when this is aired. Check it out. You know the title yet, or you're not allowed to say yet?
I don't know the title yet. This is part of the fun of writing a book.
It takes you ABC, your own ABCs, right?
Yep.
So folks, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons below to be notified when we release podcasts. We release them every Thursday at 1:00. And head over to shutupanddoitrealestate.com for all of our former episodes. And also be sure to take part every third Tuesday of the month. We hold our fix and flip meetup or our intermediate group meetup. You definitely want to check those things out. The link is in the below description. We do our coaching and just our general networking. And as always, thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.